It's so easy these days to get drawn into the world of spirituality. You're scrolling through your feed and you see all these images of peace and bliss and enlightenment. It looks like such a beautiful escape from the chaos of modern life. And honestly, who wouldn't want that? But what if there's a shadow side to that pursuit of light? What if sometimes we use our highest ideals to avoid our deepest, most human wounds? Well, today, we're going to dive into exactly that, this beautiful and really tricky trap. So that quote right there, that's from a psychologist named John Welwood. And wow, it really gets to the heart of what we're exploring. He calls it a persistent shadow. It's this idea that there's a pattern that so many of us can probably recognize in ourselves or others, even if we never, ever had a name for it. It's this shadow that can follow even the most sincere spiritual seeker. And today, we're finally going to give it a name and shine a light on it. All right, so here's our game plan for this journey. First, we're going to look at what makes spirituality's shadows so seductive. Then, we'll get a crystal clear definition of what spiritual bypassing actually is. After that, we'll explore the 4 common faces of this avoidance. Then, and this is the important part, we'll talk about how to move from that avoidance into genuine integration. And we'll wrap it all up with what I think is a beautiful invitation to wholeness. Okay, let's jump right in. Section 1, Spirituality's Seductive Shadow. And yeah, that subtitle says it all, doesn't it? When the pursuit of light creates darkness. It sounds like a paradox, but it's something that happens all the time when we're not paying close attention. And this right here is the absolute heart of the matter. The danger isn't in spirituality itself, of course not. The risk is in how we can unconsciously use it. You know that deep human instinct to just skip the hard stuff? The anger, the grief, the insecurities, all the messy parts we don't really like? Well, it's like we can sometimes grab this beautiful, shiny blanket of spiritual ideas and just throw it over the mess, pretending it's not there. So we've talked about this shadow, this pattern of using spiritual ideas to avoid feeling our feelings. But what do we actually call it? Well, it has a name, and that's exactly what we're getting into next. And there it is, spiritual bypassing. At its core, it's the tendency to use these big, wonderful spiritual concepts to kind of sidestep the tough stuff. The unresolved emotional baggage, these psychological wounds we all carry, those essential life lessons we're meant to learn. Now, the most important thing to get here is that this is not about being a bad spiritual person. Not at all. It's a defense mechanism, a really smart, really sophisticated one, actually. It's our mind's clever way of trying to protect us from pain. And this isn't some brand new idea. We're talking about the early 1980s when John Welwood, the same guy from the quote earlier, first coined the term. See, he was looking at spiritual communities and noticed something that just didn't add up. He saw people having these profound, incredible, transcendent experiences, but then back in their daily lives, they were still emotionally immature or struggling with the same old wounds. And that was his huge insight. He realized you can't just focus on the spiritual and ignore the psychological. They're not two different paths. They have to be walked together. Okay, so this is all great in theory, but what does spiritual bypassing actually look like in real life? In our conversations, in our relationships? Well, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It can show up in a few common ways, and we're going to look at a couple of these faces of avoidance right now. First up, let's talk about the transcendent avoider. You might know someone like this. They're the ones who say things like, "Oh, suffering is just an illusion," or "It's all perfect." They can seem so detached, so enlightened. But the hidden cost is often a real lack of emotional depth and a struggle to form genuine, intimate connections. Then there's the selective transcender. This one's a little more subtle. When something painful happens, their immediate knee-jerk reaction is, okay, what's the spiritual lesson here? And look, seeking meaning is a great thing, but they do it so fast that they completely skip over the crucial first step, actually feeling the pain, the anger, or the grief. And this brings us to what I think is just a perfect metaphor, the premature transcendence trap. Imagine you're building a house. You wouldn't start putting up the walls for the second floor with all the beautiful windows and views before you've poured a solid concrete foundation, right? Of course not. The whole thing would just collapse. Well, in this analogy, that solid foundation is our messy, gritty, totally human emotional life. And the second floor, that's all those higher spiritual ideals like forgiveness, non-attachment, and universal love. We simply can't skip the foundation and jump straight to the pretty stuff upstairs. It just doesn't work. Okay, let's be honest. Do any of these sound a little familiar? I don't do drama. Or the classic, oh, that's just your ego talking. Or maybe, I've transcended the need for that. And the big one, I'm sending love and light. Now look, these phrases aren't always bad, but they can definitely be used as tools for bypassing. It's how a kind of spiritual superiority complex can sneak in. That sending love and light, when used as an avoidance tactic, can really just be a polite way of saying, your pain is making me uncomfortable and I'm checking out of this conversation. So after all of that, you might be thinking, okay, I see the problem, so what's the solution? And the answer is absolutely not about abandoning spirituality, not at all. The path forward is about moving from avoidance to integration. It's about healing that split we can sometimes feel between our spiritual aspirations and our real human experience. And here is that shift in a nutshell. It looks so simple on the screen, but this is everything. On the one hand, you have bypassing, using spirituality to avoid our humanity, to run from it, to rise above it. And on the other side, you have integration, using those same spiritual tools to fully embrace our humanity, to turn toward the mess, to get curious about it, to hold it with kindness. It's a one-word difference, avoid versus embrace. But that one word changes the entire spiritual journey. So how do we actually practice embracing our humanity? Well, here is an incredibly powerful and practical tool. It's an acronym called RAIN. First, R is for recognize. It's as simple as noticing, oh, okay, that's anxiety I'm feeling right now. You just name it. Next, A is for allow. This part is huge. It means letting the feeling just be there without needing to fix it, judge it, or push it away. Just give it some space to exist. Then I is for investigate. And this isn't a harsh interrogation. It's a gentle, kind curiosity. It's asking, what does this sadness really need from me right now? And finally, N is for non-attachment. Now, this doesn't mean you become cold or don't care. It means you can hold the experience with compassion, knowing that you are not the feeling. You are the one who is aware of the feeling. It's a beautiful framework for meeting yourself with kindness, right where you are. And all of this practice, all of this turning towards ourselves, leads us to our final and most important section. It's an invitation to wholeness. It's a complete reframing of what the whole point of a spiritual path really is. If you take only one thing away from our time together today, please let it be this. The goal of a truly spiritual life is not to escape our humanity. Our emotions, our struggles, our messy relationships, they aren't obstacles on the path. They are the path. That stuff is the rich, fertile soil where an authentic spiritual life actually takes root and grows. You don't become more spiritual by getting rid of your humanity. You do it by diving into it. And wow, this quote from the author Robert Augustus Masters just says it all, doesn't it? The goal is not to get rid of our humanity in the name of awakening, but to become more fully human. True awakening doesn't happen in spite of our messy human lives. It happens right in the middle of them, through them. It's about inhabiting our lives more fully, not escaping them. And so I want to leave you with a question to carry with you, not for you to answer right now, but just to let it sit with you. In your own life, on your own unique path, where are you being invited to be a little more human? Where's the invitation not to transcend, not to bypass, but to simply land more fully in your own skin, in your own life? What does that look like for you today?